Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Andrea DeHaan. I am the Outreach Coordinator for the College of Humanities and Social Sciences. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today, we have another installment of our pre-law series. The series is designed to help students make their own decisions about whether law school or a legal career might be the right choice for them. And we're honored to have another one of our esteemed alumni joining us today. I'm also joined by my co-host, Dan Matthews, who is the pre-law advisor in our college. Just a few bits and bobs about how you can participate today. While we're listening, you won't be able to be seen or be heard directly, while you should be able to see and hear us, but we would love to hear from you. So please take a moment to either give us a shout out in the chat to let us know who you are or what you're interested in. But then also be sure to use the Q&A feature. That should also be located at the bottom of your screen, because that's where you can ask questions of our guest today while he's presenting. So if you think of something during the presentation that you want to know more about, we will save time at the end of the presentation to cover some of those questions. And you should also know that you can find information about upcoming presentations as well as recordings of our previous pre-law speakers on our website, the CHAS Alumni Lunch Series page. So please keep that in mind, and I'm going to tell you a bit about today's guest. So our guest today is Mat Roundy, and Matt graduated cum laude from Utah State University in 2016, where he received a Bachelor of Science in Political Science and minored in Family and Human Development. Outside of being a dedicated student at USU, Matt spent his time as a youth mentor, hospice volunteer, special education preschool assistant, lift operator, waiter, and landscaper. While working on his bachelor's degree, a series of events sparked his interest in attending law school, which included the death of a family member, which resulted in litigation against a large corporation, an internship opportunity he received through the Institute of Government and Politics at USU, and the support and encouragement of dedicated professors in the Department of Political Science. Matt graduated in the top 5% of his class at the University of Oregon School of Law earlier this year and was honored to be admitted into the Order of the Coif. During his time as a law student, he was an associate editor for the Oregon Review of International Law, the recipient of the Excellence in Written Advocacy Award, a tutor for the Legal Research and Writing Program, a student member of the Oregon Law Academic Success Committee, the Civil Procedure Tutor for the Academic Choice for Excellence Program, a student ambassador for the Oregon Law Admissions Office, a law clerk for the Civil Litigation Division of the Oregon Department of Justice, a law clerk for the litigation department of a private firm in Oregon, and an extern for the Honorable Ann Aiken of the United States District Court for the District of Oregon. Matt now proudly serves as a judicial clerk here in Logan, where he works for the 6 judges of the 1st Judicial District of Utah. Matt is a member of the Hellenic Bar Association of Utah and is excited about dedicating his career to public service. Mat Roundy, I am going to turn the time over to you. So I will stop sharing my slides so that we can go into your presentation, and welcome to our pre-law series. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. So to jump in, as you heard, I'm Mat Roundy. I don't want to spend too much more time myself. Thank you for joining, or if you are viewing this later, I really appreciate just the fact that you're taking the time to look into your options for the future. I hope that I can provide something useful for you today. I'm really excited about the opportunity to speak with you for 3 reasons. First, you're at a pivotal point in your life, and it's just an honor to talk to anybody who's at such a important moment. And second, I really believe in Utah State. I'm excited about its trajectory, and I think it's doing an incredible amount of good in our state. And finally, in a way, our fates are tied. So the phrase I use to explain that is Aggies love Aggies, or for University of Oregon, Ducks love Ducks. What that means is the better I do as an alum, the more weight your degree carries, and as a student, the better that you do in your academic career and beyond, the more weight my degree carries. We're in this together. So I'm happy to help USU and its students however I can. To start though, this is Lessons from Law School. And I'll go through these 3 lessons: prepare for success, trust the process, and create your career. The structure of the presentation will involve going through each lesson, providing personal experiences or things that I think are important from my experience, guiding maxims, and I'll explain what that is in a sec, and action items, like things that you can start doing or thinking about today that I think are important for your success overall. So a maxim is a short statement expressing a general truth or rule of conduct. And so it's a fancy word for a phrase, but maxims have actually a very important role in statutory interpretation, which when you're interpreting a statute, if it's ambiguous, there's a process that attorneys and judges go through to interpret the statute. First, they look at the plain text and just the word, its ordinary meaning. If it's still ambiguous as applied to the facts of the case, they'll look at the context of the statute, or what some call the statutory scheme, to better understand how the phrase or the wording plays into the facts as they're presented to the court. And finally, if there's still ambiguity, they'll look into legislative research or history, and they'll use maxims or canons of construction. And what those are is these phrases that judges use as rules when they're trying to figure out really what a very ambiguous term is when applying it to a case that affects people's lives. Before we get into all that, I just wanted to give some background. Specifically, I wanted to provide some context by quickly going over this, and I'll relate back to it later to make my points. But what I mean is some of my points may fall flat without some contextual examples. So before I capitalized on opportunities at Utah State University and found success, I mean, to be honest, I was a loser. I self-define that I wasn't succeeding in life. And to explain how that came to be, I'll provide you how I got to that mindset that created a lot of failure for me. So I grew up with some struggles early in life. I had a serious stutter. And so the letters that I struggled with the most were M and R, and my name is Mat Roundy. So moving around as a Navy brat with my dad from base to base, having a serious stutter, and coming from a very dysfunctional home that was seriously unstable, I had a lot of anxiety, and I really couldn't talk right. So I wasn't very engaged at school. I was always anxious. And I mean, honestly, I was that weirdo in the corner who couldn't talk and who just was awkward. And so it resulted in me receiving a poorer education because I didn't really engage and take advantage of the wonderful education systems that we have in the United States. For example, I didn't go to 4th grade. I was on a military base, and my my mom fought with the teacher, and she pulled me and I didn't go, and I tested back into 5th grade. But if you ask me, a whole year of not receiving institutional education didn't serve me well. And then all that resulted in a low self-esteem. I just didn't really believe in myself. I didn't have much vision or anything like that. But, and so that resulted in me blaming my failures on my situation. And I allowed myself to become what I call a victim of my circumstance. And by becoming a victim of my circumstance and blaming everybody else but myself, that's how I became what I call a loser. I was a college dropout. I just wasn't really going anywhere in life. And there was a lot of shame in that. I wasn't happy. So once I removed myself from those situations that I was blaming my failure for, I gradually realized that, the cure to what I was feeling was perspective and accountability. I stopped letting life happen to me, and I started going after what I wanted out of life. I stopped seeing obstacles as problems, and I started seeing obstacles for what they are, opportunities. Later in life, I realized how fortunate I was to experience so much adversity so early in life, because it allowed me to develop my valuable guiding maxim needed to survive in life and succeed. And that maxim is bear and forbear. What that means is do what you can and endure what you must. Another way of thinking about that is Benjamin Franklin wrote, "The things which hurt instruct." So control what you can, which I'll talk about later. And then sometimes life just happens, and the most important thing you can do is learn from failures or learn from challenges and use them to step forward more prepared for the next challenge. So once I developed that perspective, I immediately started finding success. I found success at Utah State. I received rewarding educational experiences. And what I mean by that is I was engaged in class. I loved what I was learning. I remember taking First Amendment, law and economics, natural resource policy, and these just incredible courses that got me excited to go to class. And then I went to professor's office hours, to tutor office hours. I was just driven to absorb all of the information that I could. And that led to exciting opportunities. I applied to internships through the Institute of Government and Politics at USU, which I strongly recommend everyone look into the opportunities through that department. It's incredible. And it really can provide life-changing experience. It did for me. So I was able to serve as a intern for a United States Senator in Washington, D.C., Senator Lee. And I just spent 4 months just learning an incredible amount. And that context really helped me in law school. And then it led to fulfilling occupations. And as you heard before, my pre-law school occupations weren't legal, weren't anything related to the legal field, but I found an incredible amount of value in them. And I think just using my perspective and my accountability, I not only found my education rewarding, but also found my occupation rewarding. I think that's just as important. And then turns out the keys to success at Utah State University are the very same keys to success in law school, or at least in my case at Oregon Law. And so by utilizing the same approach of perspective and accountability, I found rewarding educational experiences, the same kinds that I described at Oregon Law, developed incredible relationships with professors, and just absorbed an overwhelming amount of knowledge and skills that I built a lot of skills that I'm very grateful for. I had exciting opportunities. Most of them were through employment, and I found that employment very fulfilling. I'll get into that a little later, but that's just my background. And moving to the first lesson, prepare for success. That's what I did, and that's what I suggest you do. And I know that Utah State provides the opportunities and support to make success a habit. I don't think it was a coincidence that I succeeded at Utah State and then in law school. I think it carried over. So one of the lessons that one of the maxims that I recommend using for preparing for success is I didn't wait for success, I chased it. A lot of people sit there, or at least I did before Utah State, sat there and thought, I'll catch my break, or I'm just not that smart or not that lucky. But it really is just a matter of hard work and will. If you want something, go get it. And Utah State has all the opportunities to chase success. I did so by creating healthy habits. I would set goals and I would write them down. I focused on those goals. For example, I wanted to get above a 3.0 GPA for the first time. And I just wrote that down to get above a 3.0 GPA. And I focused on it. And I would come back and look at where I was at mid-semester and what I had to do, different weights at different classes. And I used a schedule, which I think that's a must for success in law school. And that means that every day I knew what each hour of my day was going to involve, and I stuck to that schedule. And then I calendared my semesters. So I knew what was coming ahead and I could prepare for it. I knew that my paper was due October 21st, that I needed to have a draft done by October 6th, and I should go to the English department or the writing center at Utah State and go over some initial edits, fix the paper, go to them again, fix the paper, and then turn it in, or meet with the professor and then fix it one more time. And above all, I respected myself and I held myself to a high standard because I knew I could do it. I had to push myself, and I respected others. I learned from all the other students in my classes, and I thought that was very, very valuable. So those habits helped. And then those habits created another habit, which is capitalizing on opportunities. I needed to be able to recognize an opportunity. So First Amendment was an opportunity. That course was an opportunity to learn, prepare for law school, to build skills in writing and legal analysis, to work with the professor, and to achieve a satisfactory grade. So I would approach that opportunity strategically, like I just said, using a schedule, calendaring semesters, setting goals, and then I acted as if it was my last, as if
Sorry, folks, we appear to be experiencing some technical difficulties, but it looks like Matt's able to rejoin us. So Matt, it appears that the evil internets may have gotten the best of you, but
sorry about that.
No need to apologize. It happens in this era of people using more bandwidth. So we'll let you continue.
Okay, so I think I was on capitalizing on opportunities and acting as if every opportunity is your last one, because it really could be. And when you're experiencing the failure that I was, I genuinely believe that if I couldn't do it now, I wouldn't be able to do it later. So then I knew I wasn't in it alone either. I utilized my resources. I'm going to pretend like this is in past tense. I accidentally left it in present tense. But I met with Mr. Matthews regularly. At the end of every semester, checked in, made sure the next semester the courses I was taking got me on the track to graduate. And I just talked to him about law school quite a bit. I highly recommend setting up a meeting with Mr. Matthews, even just to introduce yourself. I took those interesting courses as I discussed. I met with career services, which if you're not aware of that, there's a career services at Utah State, and they can help you with resumes, cover letters, all those things that I didn't have a professional background in. And they were really my first resource that helped me with those sorts of things. And then taking opportunities, applying for those internships. Like I told you, I strongly recommend that you look into the Institute of Government and Politics at Utah State and maybe just introduce yourself and then keep it on your radar. They're very friendly. If they're still where they were before, they're in Old Main. And then finally, taking opportunities with professors to meet office hours with tutors, and with the English department, that writing center at Utah State is incredible. I mean, it's phenomenal, and it prepares you very well for law school because that editing process is the same process you'll be following in law school. And then I made an informed decision about applying to law school. And by that, I mean, I did little things like I visited the websites of schools I was interested in. I mean, originally I was interested in Duke was my dream school. And then I applied to University of Colorado, University of Oregon, and University of Washington. And then I think another East Coast school. I think it was William and Mary. And I checked out all their websites. I spoke to their admissions departments. I mean, there's an entire department at the law school who are excited to hear from you. And they're experts and they're ready to help you navigate that school's admissions process, which it's reasonably confusing for someone who hasn't been through it. So why not reach out to them? I know University of Oregon's admissions department loves to hear from prospective students. That they just love helping those who are navigating this process. So it's important to reach out and reach out early. And then at the admissions department, I usually ask to speak to a student or an alumni or just someone who's currently going through law school at that law school or who has, so I can ask them kind of more personal questions that I don't feel I'll get a, I guess, robotic answer, more of a real answer, if you will. So just, I wanted to show you, if I can, what I mean by just checking out the website. So this is University of Oregon School of Law's website. I had some things here. So first, check out admissions, because that's what you'll be doing. And then right now we're in a, you can look at numbers. I mean, this is actually pretty impressive. At Oregon Law, the overall employment rate for the graduating class of 2019 is rounding up 91%, and the bar passage rate for first-time takers was 86%. Those are good numbers. And then there's plenty of things to check out there, but visit us. Right now in the current COVID crisis, it might be hard to get out to the school, or you just don't have the financial resources to do so. And so there's a virtual tour here. I'm sure BYU Law, Utah Law, Arizona Law, whatever law school you're looking into, I'm sure they have virtual tours up by now. And all these videos can be very intriguing and help you kind of understand the fit, like how you would fit with this school. And that's something that I really looked at when I was looking into law schools. I weighed the fit, the financial feasibility, and the probability of success. So I fit in at Oregon Law. I had a great, it was my best financial offer, which can change depending on the economics at the time. And then I just felt like I could be successful there because I recognized every way I'd been successful at Utah State, there was a path for success at Oregon Law. And then some other things to look at might be, would be faculty and experts. And once you're here, you can see the professors at the law school and their expertise. And you should keep this in mind because while you're at law school, you'll probably want to work with one or so professors as a research assistant or as their tutor or whatever it may be. And so I worked very closely with Eric Gerben. And as you see, he's an expert in civil litigation, conflict and dispute resolution, criminal law, appropriate dispute resolution, Oregon child advocacy projects, and psychology. So I mostly worked with him on civil litigation, and he taught me a lot about psychology and conflict and dispute resolution, or what he called good lawyering. And then I also, at University of Oregon, worked very closely with the LRW program. And LRW is legal research and writing. You'll take it one a year, which I'll discuss later. It's what attorneys do every day. And that's one reason why I chose Oregon Law. They had the #2 program in the country. And I just thought, this is my chance to build a skill. And that's the skill that sets attorneys apart. And if I can be a expert in legal research and writing, then I have a chance. And finally, I just wanted to quickly share, I'm sure a lot of law schools have programs like this, but if you go to academics and student success, I was a tutor for this program, and it was such a safety net for 1Ls. Not necessarily to get them a good grade, which is typically the result after the program, but also to just help you start building those skills like I've discussed. You have your first year workshops in small groups where you are working more one-on-one, and you learn how to work as a group on things like legal analysis in terms of contracts or civil procedure. You can work with a tutor, which that's what I was, and I worked very closely with my tutors as well. And then you get academic advising, and that was another professor that I worked very closely with, who she really helped students build the skills to do well on tests, such as midterms, finals, to write excellent papers, to be good attorneys, and to pass the bar, which is the most important thing at the end. And there she is, Professor Megan McAlpin. So moving on, get back to my presentation. This has been lesson 1, and I think the overall guiding maxim is of owns right. And that means that's a legal phrase, and that means that you have legal responsibility. You're not a minor. You can be liable for your own actions. And that's kind of what I've discussed today, is if you're going to find success, if you're going to prepare for success, it's in your hands. Go get it, and put the work in. And I promise it's very rewarding when you do find success. And a few action items that you can take. You can start your legal career today by creating those healthy habits. Treat every challenge as your last opportunity. Utilize your resources. And then make an informed decision. So define your factors, as I discussed. Mine were probability of success, financial feasibility, and then fit. Visit law school's website, speak with the admissions department, and speak with students and alumni. So next lesson number 2, is trust the process. Law school is an incredible opportunity to acquire very valuable skills and to master a very rewarding trade. I like to think of it as an age-old trade. People have always been writing and advocating and creating rules. So it's just an honor to participate in the legal process through law school and as an attorney. But I just wanted to explain one little thing right here. You don't need to write anything down or anything, but just take a guess as to who this is. I'll give you just a few seconds. So if you guessed the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, you were correct. I doubt any of you guessed that, but the point is you couldn't, if I walked into a diner when Ruth Bader Ginsburg was of this age, and I went up to a stranger and I said, that little girl over there would successfully fight for major first steps towards gender equality and eventually become probably the most historically popular justice on the United States Supreme Court. And do you think that person would believe me? At that time, I highly doubt it. But the point is, don't sell yourself short. We never know what our possibilities are when we put ourselves in place to succeed. And so Ruth Bader Ginsburg worked her tail off. She fought for decades, and she found success. And so all of us, as long as we trust the process. And by trust the process, these are some things that I did I approached law school as a trade school, kind of like I discussed. This angered some legal academics or some attorneys when I'd say this, but I really don't find a difference between practicing law and practicing auto mechanics. It's the same thing to me, just different trades. You learn the basics about an engine. You're able to define this part of an engine, this tool, and then you are able to issue spot for your clients, and then you're able to fix engines. And it's the same thing with law. You learn the vocabulary, you build the skills, and then you're able to issue spot for your clients and resolve those issues. So the important thing is, when you're in trade school, you first need to build those skills. The skills that you'll be building in law school are navigating legal systems. Like I discussed, legal research, writing, legal analysis, and legal advocacy. Issue spotting, and what I mean by that is, it's one way of saying it is kind of seeing the matrix. That'll make sense later if you do attend law school, but you start to see all of the legal issues that can come up in different fact patterns. And so I annoyed my wife so much my 1L year when I started to see the matrix, because we'd be driving and someone would walk into a crosswalk when they shouldn't have. And I would start thinking liability and what torts they might have and things like that. So it's a very important skill. Attorneys use it every single day. And then professionalism as well, which for me, that was a huge skill, which I didn't have the background with, but just learning how to treat your colleagues, how to approach interviews, how to reach out to an attorney with emails and things like that. Those are skills that you're building as you attend law school, and they don't expect you to have that straight out of the gate. And then once you start to build those skills, you need to practice them. So for issue spotting and navigating legal systems and legal research, writing, analysis, and advocacy, there's practice problems. There's memorizing the elements or the factors, which that'll make sense later if you attend law school, but memorizing the law, outlining the law, which an outline is kind of the highlights of a legal analysis. So maybe you'll have a legal doctrine, such as breach of contract, and then you'll have the elements, which mean the things that the one party will have to prove in order to bring a breach of contract claim before a court. And then the remedies, such as things that they can ask for if they successfully do bring a breach of contract claim. And then you get a lot of practice from clinics and employment in law school. So that's important to look at too when you're looking at law schools, is their clinics, when you can start accessing them. Hopefully it will be the spring of your 2L year, or just employment numbers, like how many 1Ls are employed their 1L summer, which means the summer after their first year of law school. And then finally, master those skills. Becoming an excellent attorney, it takes decades. And so find employment that you love and that you go to every day, and you approach it with a pep in your step, and just through practicing law, you'll be mastering those skills. Okay, and then my next point with trusting the process is I fully committed. And what I mean by this is, so if you want to learn whether an island is inhabitable, the best way to do so is to burn the boats, because you have no other option. You are going to survive and find out that the island is inhabitable, or you're going to have to find a way to escape. But that's the way I approached law school. I didn't look at any options. Quitting was never an option. I only thought of, how can I succeed in this moment? How can I build these skills, get better, improve? And I never looked at my situation in self-pity or felt bad for myself, because you're in law school. That's an incredible opportunity. And a lot of people would, I guess, for lack of a better term, kill for it, even though I don't think they'd really kill anybody. Another point on this is my favorite poet, Robert Frost, in Servant of Servants, he wrote, "The best way out is through." So even if in that moment you're not enjoying yourself, finish the course, fully commit to seeing it through, and I promise you'll be happy by the end. So to give you a little bit of logistical background, your 1L year, you don't choose your courses typically. The law school just enrolls you and you receive your schedule. And your general courses, your first year of law school or 1L year are contracts, civil procedure, or federal courts, as it's sometimes called, and torts, and then legal research and writing. And then your second semester, your 1L year, will typically involve career planning, property, criminal law, and constitutional law 1. And then just to explain now what most law schools do, unless you attend one of, I think, the top 3 law schools, Stanford, Harvard, and Yale, they don't grade on a curve and they don't rank, but that's because a degree from there is as good as gold. Anyone who graduated from one of those schools is a top attorney typically, and so they don't need to prove themselves otherwise. But most other law schools, they'll grade you on a curve, and what that means is the professor will pick a median GPA before he or she grades midterms, papers, and finals. And that curve, for example, could be a 2.8, and that means if you get a 2.8, you fell on the 50% range of students' GPAs. And so if you get a 2.8 and the class of students is 100 people, your rank would be 50 or somewhere around there. And then it's a bell curve. And so there'll be a lot of students who get around a 2.8. And as you get further and further, there's less and less students. So if you are fortunate enough to get an A+ or an A or A-, there's fewer of those grades and your rank will be higher. And so as you heard earlier, when it was stated that I graduated order of the Quaif, what that means is the top 10% of that rank. And it's just a Latin term for you did well academically. And so you can expect that. But you can also expect a whole plethora of resources, just like Utah State provides. Just to name a few that I would recommend are study groups. And at Oregon Law, they build those in with those workshops. But a study group where you can meet with other students and work well together, not sit there and argue, but just sit there and figure out your outline typically. So I'd meet with students in a room and we would just say, okay, so today we discussed the doctrine of breach of, the claim of breach of contract. Can we get a 1-word description of what that is? Can we agree on the elements? And when minds come together, you can see where you were wrong, and you can also provide helpful analysis for other students. So study groups, I would say, are essential. Going to professor office hours, if you're not doing that your 1L year, you really need to. Your professors can speak a bit more frankly in their office hours and help you better understand what you need to understand. You also have Barbary Materials at University of Oregon, and I believe most law schools. And what those are is Barbary is the bar prep that you'll usually be taking to study for the bar. And it's a series of videos. They provide outlines like we've discussed, and practice problems. So you can maybe hear the doctrine of breach of contract from another professor through Barbary and watch his video or her video. And then you can do some practice problems and so forth. And finally, tutors, like I mentioned, and mentors. And it's okay to have a mentor that's a classmate. I had a mentor that was a 3L my 1L year, and a mentor that was my study buddy, who was a 1L with me in classes. both of them provide a lot of support, and committing to success with my 1L study buddy helped a lot. I always knew, I got to get to the library as soon as it opens, meet him with a study room, and start figuring out how to prepare for whatever's coming up early, and then just start putting in the work. And I think not having him would have very much negatively affected my grades, just because law school can be tough, and having someone who commits with you is a very powerful tool. So and then summer employment, like I discussed, you learn a lot of just the actual practice of law your first summer. And that first job can really set a trajectory for your legal career. So it's important to take that very seriously and to work with the law school and their career center to get the best fit and the best opportunity for you. Very briefly, there's also 2 more years of law school. Some general 2L courses are legal ethics, evidence, constitutional law 2, and a class that I really like, jurisprudence, and that's just the philosophy of legal analysis and of judges. And that can be very helpful to understanding how to be the best advocate that you can be when you're before a judge. And then your 2L year, you should either do journal or moot court. And I did journal. It'll help with your editing process, your ability to write and to do what's called legal citations. So cite to legal sources such that another legal scholar can recognize the citation and find exactly the language or the source that you're citing and rely on it. You should also be getting experience through clinics like I discussed, and then 2L summer employment is very serious as well. There's something called summer associate programs, and that's typically how you get a job your 3L year, and which can carry over into your first job out of law school. And so there'll be something called on-campus interviews typically, and major employers will come to the law school, and it's a whole process that I'm sure you'll enjoy once you get there. Excuse me. So 3L year, you'll be taking typically bar courses or specializing. I took bar courses, and those included secure transactions, criminal procedure, business associations, trust and estates, remedies, and so forth. You can also specialize if you want to go into a niche practice of law, such as food law or immigration law or something like that. So overall, I believe a guiding maxim for trusting the process is we gather strength as we go. It's embracing the learning process, not being afraid to fail, and to move forward, to build those skills and to fully commit. So action items is you can just start acquiring skills now. You can start building your writing and analysis skills at Utah State. I recommend taking First Amendment. And then as you enter law school, you can practice and master those skills through exams and employment. And then the second action item is fully committing. So embrace each stage. I think it's very unhealthy to look into the future past too romantically. Just live in the moment, embrace the growth. It may not feel comfortable, but it's an incredible gift to be able to just be learning such a valuable skill and building such a bright future. And then embrace your results. If you do well, don't doubt yourself. You deserve every success that you achieve. If you didn't do as well as you would like, figure out how you can do better, or maybe figure out how in the future you can get to a place that maybe you didn't think was, maybe thought was below what you'd like, but is actually just the right fit. And so very quickly, my last point is create your career. So I'm going to go over my law school employment, my current employment, and my prospective employment, or my career plans. So my first job at law school, my one-off summer, was I worked for the Oregon Department of Justice for the trial division for the civil litigation unit. And to explain what that, I was a law clerk, and to explain what that is I worked for the state of Oregon. I worked for the executive branch of government. I worked for the Attorney General's office and the DOJ specifically. And so if someone was suing the state of Oregon in civil court, they came through the unit that I worked for. And so there's litigation rather than transactional work. I worked in litigational work, in civil work, so civil litigation, and I worked on the defense side, so defending the state from civil claims, such as, you know, a crosswalk case, a slip and fall case, and so forth. Next, I worked for a private firm, and there's private and public. I'll stick to private over here, and you can contrast it yourself. But I worked in the private sector. I worked for people and entities, or the firm did, and I helped them as a law clerk. And then the firm I worked for was a small firm, and so they did everything. They did transactional work and litigation. They did transactional work for municipal entities, so they helped cities write contracts or intergovernmental agreements, and just navigate the legal system that a city needs to avoid litigation. And they also worked on litigation and for a number of practice areas. Some that I worked on was trust and estates and business law. And then my last law school employment was I worked for the Honorable Ann Aiken of the United States District Court for the District of Oregon, and I was a judicial extern. So rather than work, there's two main judicial systems or court systems in the United States. I'm not going into municipal court systems here, but there's federal and state. And then they have the same structure: the Supreme Courts, Court of Appeals, and District Court for the most part. There's also administrative courts, which we won't go into. So I worked for the federal court system at the district court level for the District of Oregon. I worked for one judge, and my work mostly consisted of receiving assignments from the judicial clerk, and then working on, conducting legal research and analysis. And then I would write memorandum decisions, which are the published decisions that other courts can rely on. Courts don't typically rely on district court opinions, but they are published. And so I would write one, and the clerk would check it over and make sure that I was correct in all my analysis and writing. And then it's published on the legal research websites right now. So that was an awesome opportunity. My current employment, I have to pinch myself every morning. I couldn't be more happy with where I'm at in life. I never would have dreamed that at 29, I'd be an attorney, I'd be working for judges, and I'd be happily married in a place that I love. I just didn't think those things happened to people like me. But I promise, if you go through the process that I discussed, anything you want out of life, you can get it. So I work for the First Judicial District of Utah. And so once again, now we're in the state court system. I'm a judicial clerk this time, not a judicial extern. So I'm not a student, I'm a professional. I work for the district court, which is where trials happen, for the first district, and that includes Rich County, Cache County, and Box Elder County. This is where I work. This is the Logan courthouse. There's also the Brigham City courthouse and a satellite courthouse out in Rich County. And this is what your typical courtroom looks like in the first district of the Logan courthouse. This is typically where the attorneys sit. This is called the jury box. The judge is up here, and this is where attorneys speaking to the judge or questioning a witness who sits over here would stand and communicate. And so I'd like to show you who I work for. Excuse me. So just to quickly show you, as I discussed, this is the first district. It's pretty much the top of Utah. And then who I work for. Oops, juvenile. So I work for the juvenile judges as well, but right now I mostly do most of my work for the presiding judge, Judge Fonsbeck. And I've done quite a bit of work for Judge Cannell as well, and I've done some work for Judge Maynard, who's out in Box Elder County. I'll do more work for him usually my second year of the clerkship. And then there's another judge who should, if all goes well, should be on the bench come November, and that will be Judge Spencer Walsh. Let's get back to my presentation. Okay, so what I do every day, looks like I have a few more minutes, is I follow instructions. So I receive assignments from the judge. They usually give me a case number and say, hey, work on this motion for summary judgment on this case. And without getting into details of what every specific motion is, but a motion is just when a party to the case before the court asks the court to do something. So for summary judgment, it's to dismiss grant summary judgment to say this should not go to trial. The law is completely on this one side favor, and there's no real disputes here. And then after I receive my assignment, I conduct legal analysis and legal research, as we've discussed. Usually do that through something called Westlaw is what I use. And the analysis is something that you take time to learn, and that's one of those skills you learn in law school. And then finally, I write bench memoranda and memorandum decisions regarding those assignments. So sometimes I'll go listen in on a hearing, and then I'll conduct my analysis, and then I'll write a bench memoranda so the judge can use it when at the bench to orally provide an order from the court or decision, or a memorandum decision, which again, that's the written decision that the parties will receive from the judge. So I'll usually write that and provide it to the judge, and if they have any critiques, they'll send it back. And in the end, it's mostly my work that the judge oversaw going to the attorneys. Finally, my career plan is after this clerkship, I would like to work for the Utah Appellate Judicial Clerkship. So work for either the Court of Appeals for the state of Utah or the Supreme Court. I'm applying to those continuously, and there's wonderful options and judges, and I'm really excited about those opportunities. And then if I can, I would like to work for the United States District Court for the District of Utah. Most of those judges are in Salt Lake City, and I would just be the trial level again, but in the federal system. And then after my clerkships and those opportunities have come and passed, I'd like to be a county attorney and work for the county, or a deputy county attorney and work for the county attorney's office in civil defense, like we discussed, or criminal prosecution. And then if I have the opportunity, I'd like to work for the Utah Attorney General's office as a deputy AG, which there's special prosecutors or there's civil defense work that I would be very interested in. And finally, my overall goal is to be a judge. And sometimes people look at you crazy when you say you want to be a judge, or you kind of think to yourself like, I'm not sure that'll happen. I'm very confident that if I put in the time, the decades of work, I can become a judge. And I'm really excited about just that prospect. So for creating your career, my guiding maxim is always forward. So establish a vision like I just discussed, create experiences, and then never quit. So that's our presentation. And this looks like there's about 6 minutes left or so.
Thank you so much, Matt, for sharing your story with us. It's both inspiring, but also incredibly informational for a student who is looking at law school and trying to sort of navigate the particulars. Dan, I'm going to turn the time over to you. if you've got specific questions for Matt about his presentation.
Also, if anybody has questions, please post them on chat and I'll make sure they get asked. I did have one question. What was your least favorite part of law school? What was your favorite part? I know what my answers are, but I'm curious as to yours.
Whoops. Sorry about that. So I imagine my answer is very similar to yours, but my least favorite part, I would say, was the time it consumes and just the energy it consumes. So I got married about a month before law school started, and my wife and I moved to Oregon, where we didn't know anybody. And so I was just constantly at a law school thinking about, I hope my wife's okay, I hope my partner's happy. And so I was navigating that while going to law school. So that was my least favorite part. Was I just felt like it was difficult. Law school was probably more difficult for my wife than it was for me. And then my favorite part, I would have to say, was, as I discussed, building the skills. At first you look at attorneys and upperclassmen at law school and you think, oh, they're so incredible. Like someday I just hope I can be like that. And then after about your first semester, you realize these are just skills. You've already started to build them. And it is a huge sense of achievement when you're able to conduct a legal analysis and write a legal brief and just come to the right conclusion.
Looks like we have one on how and when did you start preparing for the Lsat? What do you wish you did to prepare differently, if anything?
That is a very good question. And I actually do have a, if I could change things point. So I started to prepare for the Lsat. I just took a Kaplan course my junior year. So I had 1 year left. And it was a year before I was applying to law schools. And I took it in May, and somebody told me that, it's just like a Band-Aid. You just rip it off. You take the course, and then you take a few practice tests, and then a few weeks later, you just take the LSAT. And so that's what I did. And I did fairly well as far as score goes, but I know I could have done better if I would have put more time and practice in. And so I prepared for about 6 weeks, but I think preparing for 6 months is a better option, if not 3 months or so, because you're building a skill that is taking the LSAT. There's nothing else quite like it. And so the more you can learn from a course or learn from a book that you're reading and then practice, the better you'll do. So time is something that I would change.
All right, we have another one. What advice do you have for someone who wonders if they could even make it through law school and be a successful attorney?
My advice would be the same as what I just discussed, essentially. I didn't think that I'd ever be a successful attorney. And making it through law school, I committed to it, but it's a very scary process in terms of there's self-doubt and things like that. You just have to focus on the good or the kind of self-aspirations of I can do this and I'm going to make it through, and then just fully commit. Quitting should never be an option in my mind. You should dive into law school and just know that you're going to put the work in to be successful. And that, one mindset I had is there's clients out there waiting for me, and I need to become the best attorney I can, regardless of rank. I just need to get through this so that I can help someone on the other side.
Are there any more from the audience? I just have one straight curiosity, my favorite first year law school class was, what's your answer to that?
I'd be interested to know what yours was, Mr. Matthews.
Mine was property.
Oh,
Property
property?
was always my favorite class. All the way through.
That's funny. That I really struggled with property. So kudos. That's a difficult course. My favorite was civil procedure, and legal research and writing. But substantively, I love civil procedure, which is the rules of court when you're bringing a case before when you're bringing a civil case before a judge. It's all the kind of nitpicky rules. There's lots of jurisdiction involved. So what courts are allowed to hear what. And I just really nerded out on those rules, the same as someone might nerd out on the rules of monopoly or something like that. And legal research and writing, like I discussed, it's the building of the skill that was my favorite. It was awesome to just start doing the things that attorneys do and realizing, oh, I can do this.
Well, thank you so much, Matt. And thank you, Dan, for leading us through the Q&A. But Matt, I hope that this has been a wonderful resource for the folks who joined us today. I know we have a lot of students who, are thinking about law school, and I think that it's really important sometimes to take the unknown out of the equation and to just hear from someone who's gone through the experience, and for you to have broken it down in such an easy to follow manner. I mean, that's just incredibly helpful to our current students. So thank you so, so much. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for the opportunity. I'm glad to be here.
And we certainly will wish you luck on your own career trajectory, and hope that you also get to be a judge someday. We are also a proud, home to Judge Robert Shelby, and so we have some judges among our alumni, and we hope to count you among them as well someday. I'm going to end today by just showing everyone a little bit about our next event. Which is just to remind you that our final pre-law series for fall semester will be on November 10th at 4 p.m. That will feature Ranelle Jones. She is a professor at the S.J. Quinney College of Law. She has a background in journalism and actually teaches media law there at the U. So we hope that you will look to join us on November 10th at 4 o'clock. And we thank you so much for joining us today. I think Matt also gave some great advice as far as reaching out to the IOGP or career services and taking advantage of all the resources that exist on campus for current students. And please know that Dan and I are resources too. So if you have questions about connecting with other alumni, or if you want to meet with a pre-law advisor and discuss your options or discuss LSAT preparation, please reach out to me or reach out to Dan. And thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. Matt, we thank you for being our guest today. And I wish everyone a wonderful afternoon.